Okay, concise risk management frameworks for business continuity and recovery. Sounds like a bit of a mouthful, doesn't it? And I think we all know that most of us, particularly in small business or entrepreneur land, I would even say in big business land, as soon as people say the words risk management, you can virtually straight away see everyone's eyes glaze over, and it is literally, I would say, one of everybody's least favourite topics. However, there's some great aspects of it that are really, really relevant now in this COVID-19 period. But for me and for us, I think they're foundational, and I think they can be some great value add concepts for you guys to get your heads around, both currently in the COVID-19 world, but then also to set you up with a far better framework and a foundation for a stronger, more resilient, and certainly ultimately more risk-proof business in the future. Because at the end of the day, look, I will say from the get-go, in my perspective, COVID-19 isn't the last of these significant pandemic events that human history's seen. It's probably the most significant one that most of us in the Western world have seen in our lifetimes, but it will not be the last. And if it's not the COVID-19 pandemic, it'll be something to do with IT or cybersecurity. There will be significant global events that we will have to deal with in our business, I would say, for the foreseeable future. And the quicker we can just get our approaches and our systems to match that environment, the better it's going to be, and the more confidence and the less anxiety that it can build for us as business owners. And I'll emphasize that a lot throughout the presentation today. Really good risk management is predominantly, look, everybody thinks it's all negative and about threat reduction, exposure reduction. That's a component of it, but we're going to talk also about opportunity identification. So in terms of the feeling aspect for me, and certainly being a director in not-for-profit entities, and certainly anyone out there I'm speaking to that's a director themselves, either on the board of a private listed not-for-profit entity, this is about making you feel more confident about the ability of your business to achieve its objectives, and then it's also about you feeling less exposed, about keeping your ass covered, for want of a better term. You want your ass covered, you don't want it hanging in the breeze, but at the same time you want to feel confident. And so these processes, they are about the negative side, but as we'll see as we go on, it's also about the positive opportunity identification side. So let's just start right back at the basics with this risk and risk management term. What the hell is it? It gets thrown around all the time these days. It's risk, blah, 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 blah. If anyone that works in APRA or, let's call it anyone that's exposed to entities that have been part of the Banking Royal Commission, it's just the token buzzword of, let's call it 2018 onwards. But let's actually have a look at what it means, and then hopefully you'll start to see what it can mean for you and your business in terms of decision making. So risk, let's start right back at the basics. Risk, by definition, and this is the definition out of what we call ISO 31000. A lot of you probably already know what it is, but it's the international standard for risk management. I'm not going to go any further into that, because if I haven't lost everybody at that point, once I start going into the international standard space, I can guarantee I'll lose you. Right, so the definition of risk is the effect of uncertainty on objectives. So hopefully, I apologise for my khaki-handed angular writing there, but I'm trying to minimise my ability to smudge that whiteboard. Okay, the effect of uncertainty on objectives. Sounds pretty basic and simple, doesn't it? But it's actually not, and there's actually a lot more in it than what you would anticipate. So let's just pull out the core concepts there. So the first one, objectives. It's an interesting one, isn't it? So if anybody thinks about what an objective is in a business sense, you think about SMART objectives, you think about measurable, quantifiable, real, meaty objectives. That's really what this first concept's about. So risk only exists in relation to business objectives or objectives in general. So that's the first concept, concept number one. Risk only relates and only exists in relation to objectives. As a result of that, do you think it's a fair call or a fair statement to make that if you don't clearly understand your business objectives, you can't effectively manage the risk to those objectives? Given that this isn't a live webinar, I'm just going to nod my head and go, I'm thinking the answer is yes. So That is the first concept there. That's number one, objectives. The second, effect. And you'll notice all the grammar Nazis out there, it's effect with an E, not effect with an A. So effect with an E is, in most cases, what it is? It's a noun. Whereas effect with an A is most often used as a verb. So effect with an E being the noun, it means the impact as a result of, right? So what we're really saying here is risk is only in relation to objectives, and it's the impact as a result of what? It's an impact as a result of uncertainty. And so that's the third concept, the third of three concepts there. So number one, objectives. Risk only exists in relation to business objectives, and it can only be understood once you understand your objectives. Number two, effect with an E. So it is the impact or change or result of. Number three, uncertainty. So again, what the hell's uncertainty? Uncertainty's got two concepts that are really important to understand. So if you're not an economics or a risk management nerd like me, and I know that there's plenty out there that are, and you're probably already way ahead of me on this, uncertainty's got two aspects of it. What I call foreseeable, and what most people call foreseeable, again, sorry for my scribble, and what I would say inherent. Okay, so in relation to our business objectives, we've got uncertainty, the effect of uncertainty, and that uncertainty is driven by both foreseeable and inherent uncertainty. So what the hell do we do with that even? We go, oh, okay, yeah, that's great, I know that now, but so what? Well, what it really means is that if you fail to understand these two aspects of uncertainty and their effect on your business objectives, you're failing to manage risk. And so what I want to build on as the last, I've probably, lost you all, you're probably all snoozing now at this point in the video, but that's fine. If you're still with me, crack on. The inherent uncertainty, I think it's really, really interesting to understand that, particularly at the moment in related to COVID. So look, I think we all know at a strategic level, if we're smart and we run businesses that are globally linked, global pandemics are certainly there, sort of hovering in the back of your mind in terms of strategic risks that might impact your business. Think about SARS, think about swine flu, think about the Hendra virus even. So it's probably in the back of our consciousness there somewhere, but we probably, in the most part, didn't really give it too much weight. That's probably a great example of this, let's call it inherent uncertainty. And I would say the big bit about these two concepts is, let's say, uncontrollable to a large extent. Is that controllable? And controllable. So I'm sure everyone's heard a lot in the last couple of weeks about, I guess, focusing on the things that we can control versus the things that we can't control. I would encourage you to think about this inherent uncertainty in those terms. So it's uncontrollable. It's those kind of out there in the sort of universe type issues that we probably never expect to happen, but we need to be aware that they are the, let's call it the unknown unknowns. We know that they're unknown, but we don't really know much about them other than that. So that's the inherent side. So what I'm saying is you need to understand that there are unknown unknowns. Tick, that's that one done. This one, on the other hand, foreseeable uncertainty. If you're running a business and if you're trying to run a business that's performance oriented, you really need to be on top of this foreseeable uncertainty. So many in the wash up of this whole COVID-19 process or period will probably start playing into this space. Think about books like Black Swan, in terms of, let's call it events that in hindsight were viewed to be foreseeable, but at the time everybody was effectively snowblind. I'm not going to pass judgment on where this is all going to land at the moment, but I think in the future people might be trying to land COVID in that space, and they might be right. I might be trying to land COVID in that space. But what I'm trying to say to you is that there is uncertainty related to your business objectives and the effect of it that you can control, and you can identify it, and you can manage it, you can control it. So really, in essence, what we're trying to bring that all back to now is that risk is far more than just that, oh yeah, we've got to make sure we have insurance and have some safety policies in place and all that sort of stuff. It's actually a pretty big picture macroeconomic concept that really ultimately relates back to your ability to make decisions as a business, or your ability to make optimized quality decisions. So I won't labour that too much more, other than to say that we now understand that risk has three key components. Number one, it only can be understood and managed when it's related to your objectives, and in order to do that, you need to understand what your objectives are as a business. And then secondly, you need to understand the effect of inherent uncertainty, and I would say analyse and put systems in place to address the foreseeable uncertainty and the effect of that on your objectives. That's the closest you're going to get in this current environment to trying to, I guess, get back on top of things and get yourself a plan for going forward in this period after COVID-19.